Now here is the biggest issue of the day, the issue of the man agitating and unhappy, the issue of Nelson Mandela and South Africa. Oliver Tambo and Walter Sisulu were all calm and happy. Everything is posed on Nelson Mandela's head, and he is troubled. This does not mean that he was under punishment of any sort, but he was not happy either, and he is not enjoying the position he deserves in the upper world. Mandela is like someone suspended from a great position, and he is receiving amateur treatment till further notice. But that is what he deserves from his mistakes, but he shall bounce back soon. But before I proceed with the issue of Nelson Mandela and the nation of South Africa, remember what I said before about different levels of existence in the upper world. I said that a soul can be at a higher level, at a lower level, happy if it accomplishes its allotted task on earth, and the soul can be at higher level, unhappy if it did not accomplish its allotted task on earth. Let me make little explanation further with regards to this. A learner at primary school level who is given a test assignment of 20 in number, and each of the test assignments carried 5% pass mark. This means that 20 of the test assignments carry 100% pass mark. Now the people manage to get 18 or 19 or 20 of them correct, meaning he will have between 90 to 100% pass mark. Is this not good enough to congratulate the pupil for a job well done? Won't the pupil be happy for the congratulation? And won't his teacher be happy to teach the people more and help him to complete the test assignment and to achieve the desired 100% pass mark? Now you have a similar situation with a student in university studies already equipped with advanced academic knowledge, but is not able to get even 50 or 60% pass mark in his assignments. Will this student be happy enough in his level, even though he can boast of having a higher academic knowledge over the young people at primary level? Will this professor be happy with him? Will his friends be happy that he made a great effort? Won't the student start working hard to get more pass mark? The answer is inside you. This is the situation with Nelson Mandela in the upper world, as you can see now. All those who are saying that Nelson Mandela sold the country to white men are all right in their views and opinions. And the man himself have acknowledged that his tasks were not fulfilled. But let me tell you what happened to Nelson Mandela during that period of the agreement that ended apartheid, which none of you knew anything about, and will never have known about it if not now that I'm telling you. Even Mandela himself did not know it. He only knew it when, after his death, his soul began to climb into the spiritual world. Nelson Mandela was hypnotized. His brain was affected by hypnosis that made him to sign that agreement and subsequently crippled his power of action. But as he died, he immediately realized that he battled to return back to earth. But look, it was too late. And he continued to be furious about the whole situation, as he is not enjoying the position which is constantly placed in the upper world. It is quite surprising to realize that all the big names and polished images that were accorded to Nelson Mandela is just meant to deceive the black people of South Africa. The black people are just being deceived by those who use Mandela's name to affect political, social, and economic decisions to their advantage. Make no mistake, Mandela, with all his sacrifices, is a lovable and great man, but he did not accomplish his mission. This is why he is not enjoying himself in the big meeting, and he is now fighting back, as I will briefly explain now. Now he is working from above to overturn political and economic situations in South Africa. These words called monopoly capital and radical economic transformation, which is being constantly used in South Africa today, was used by Nelson Mandela in one of the questions and answer sessions in the higher world. Let me tell you something that many people are not aware about. The misunderstanding between Nelson Mandela and Sani Abacha, the former military ruler of Nigeria, that happened in 1996, which culminated in Nigerian Super Eagles not participating in the African Cup of Nations held in South Africa in that year, was because Sani Abacha was furious that Mandela, after the end of apartheid, continued to accommodate the Barclays Bank and its progenies, which was known to be financing the apartheid regime in the killing of black people of South Africa. This was at the root of the war of words between the two leaders, and Mandela has acknowledged his mistakes and tendered apology to Sani Abacha. The two men have reconciled with hugging and handshake, as Mandela vowed to correct them all. All the agitation you hear about Absa Bank to pay back some money are from him. And it will happen. And from the look of the current situation in South Africa, it's a pity to those who will be adversely affected by this message, but I have no choice but to announce it, because I am mandated to do so. I therefore advise everyone that if you are employed with Absa Bank, consider yourself unemployed. If you have an account with Absa Bank, it will be in your best interest to withdraw your money and close your account with them before it is too late. Because from the look of things, Absa Bank will be shut down and all their business interests will be severely affected all over. This investigation will be extended to the Reserve Bank of South Africa, and the Johannesburg Stock Exchange will not escape it. The conduct of all big businesses, including many government establishments in South Africa, will be investigated and brought to book. The secret killings of apartheid-era brutality will be investigated, and the perpetrators shall be brought to bear the consequences of their evil. Also, the issue of land recovery in South Africa is very much considered. In this regard, I say to the people of South Africa that you will get the land. There is no question about that. No portion of this great continent of Africa shall escape our ownership and total control. Furthermore, as things stand now in South Africa, let me inform you that there is a conspiracy going on somewhere about sponsoring terrorism and possibly war to destabilize the government of the black people in South Africa. This is being designed to start like a protest or terrorism that will start sporadically and gradually go into hedge violence. There is also a thought of planting landmines across South Africa to kill and inflict injuries on the black people who may forcefully step into the land occupied by white people in South Africa. There is also a plan to destroy many infrastructures, big malls, buildings, bridges, and many important places as a means to intimidate the black government and force the black people to surrender. But the political and economic transformation will continue until it is brought to significance, because Nelson Mandela have engaged the unfinished business from above. This is the time of unity of thought and unity of actions from all sections of black people of South Africa, and those who sympathize with them to deal with the challenges facing the country. I now call the people of South Africa, and indeed the people of Africa, to put hands together for the emancipation of our people in the Southern Africa. Some people today in South Africa think they are too big to be obedient. Some believe they have strong backup behind the scenes, and therefore can act with impunity. But please, watch your step. Now, here is the issue of the so-called gender equality, with Nelson Mandela's comment of 50-50 principle, which has been mishandled and misinterpreted in South Africa, and which is directly or indirectly responsible for gender violence, intolerance, family breakups, added to the so-called woman empowerment, which has engendered in the mind of women arrogant attitudes that pushes them to where they are not originally meant to be. Now everyone loses control. But this issue is not South Africa alone. It is affecting almost the whole continent of Africa and the entire world. However, on this issue, I was also inspired to establish an institution which I shall call World Society for Gender Discipline. I will establish and hand it over to those who can handle it, I don't want to engage myself in those emotionally controversial issues. I shall return to this point later in this message. Now, regarding the House of Africa, there shall be a time of serious political troubles in that place. An attack shall come to it from the outside planet and make war on earth. The leaders of the House of Africa shall be shattered, except one. So frustrating shall be the situation that they shall hate the establishment of House of Africa, even in the first place. They shall be tempted to dig up my bones and burn them to ashes due to the huge frustration confronting them, because at the center of the House of Africa must I be buried when I die. But that will not be my fault, because I delivered the message well. Now, listen to this astonishing information. There shall soon be a worldwide reincarnation of great minds coming back to the world, especially in Africa. Each of them in a different capacity to help move the world forward. Even many great men we knew as white people shall return, some into Africa and some elsewhere. Human being in his real essence has no border or race. It is only in this material world that these things exist. It is unfortunate that after millions of years of mankind's existence on earth, we are still learning to live. But such is the gradual process of evolution. We cannot fast-track evolution, nor can we slow it. We have to follow it according to the dictates of our time. But I am certain that man shall evolve towards the greatness of peace and love among themselves, after which we shall face the interplanetary evolution, which inevitably shall involve interplanetary wars that will destroy the House of Africa and shatter the administrators, but which shall be rebuilt. It shall also have effect in Jerusalem, after which the interplanetary relations shall take a bigger effect. Among the few men whom I am informed will return to the world are Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who shall reincarnate into Egypt, near the border with Israel in the northeastern part of the country. The reason for his reincarnation into Egypt is controversial, and they will not say it here until I see those who can handle it. Next is Nelson Mandela, who shall reincarnate in the region known today as the Democratic Republic of Congo, in the northwestern part of the country. He will have little interest about South Africa, because the South Africa we know today will be something of once upon a time. Next is Patrice Lumumba, who shall reincarnate in the southern part of what is today known as Republic of Gabon. Next is Winston Churchill, who shall reincarnate in southern part of what we know today as South Africa, in the city of Port Elizabeth. Next is Fidel Castro, who shall reincarnate in central part of the Republic of Israel. Next is Joseph Stalin, who shall reincarnate in central part of what we know today as the Republic of Burkina Faso. Next is Martin Luther King, who shall reincarnate in the southern part of what we know today as Zambia, but he shall have much interest in what we know today as South Africa. Next is Hugo Chavez, who shall reincarnate in northern part of modern-day Uruguay. Next is Sani Abacha, who shall reincarnate in what we know today as South Sudan, near the border with Central African Republic. Next is John F. Kennedy, who shall reincarnate into Central Asia. The particular place in Central Africa, Central Asia, I do not know. Next is Olusegun Obasanjo, who shall die but will reincarnate into southeastern Nigeria, in Udi town, in the place known today as Enugu State. Next is Benjamin Netanyahu, who shall die but will reincarnate into Nnewi, in what is known today as Anambra State of Nigeria. He will love ancient history a lot. And finally, Thabo Mbeki shall die and reincarnate into northwestern part of Ethiopia, and he may be the one I saw in a vision over 17 years ago to take over again in the house, to take power again in the House of Africa on a Thursday afternoon around 1 p.m. wearing white dressing. He shall come back fierce and stubborn, and possibly as an Ethiopian Jew. This information about the reincarnation of great minds was sent to me, and there are many on the line, but these few are the ones I am able to know immediately. I don't even think it is necessary to know them all. Many great minds shall follow this series of incarnation as well. Now our obligation today in Africa is to put together a well-functional and socially transformed and disciplined society that will be of great pleasure for the returning men to live and to work. Once again, it is unbelievable that the living is ruled by the dead. Now, back to gender issue, particularly in South Africa. Ever since I stepped my foot into South Africa, the traditional people of this country have always complained bitterly about the directions that women are allowed to take in that country, but have seen their voices constantly suppressed or ignored. Some are talking about gender equality, which in any sense does not exist within the scope of nature. For if our human senses, according to our understanding, cannot comprehend the mysteries behind the distinct existence of man and woman, is that the reason why we must say that there is no difference in gender? Men and women are made to exist differently, but always together. Now, think of this. There is a white liquid on one side, and there is a black liquid on the other side, and are meant to remain differently, but to come together to help each other when necessary. Now, if you mix the two liquids in one vessel, because you think they are all liquids, the result is that you will lose the distinctiveness of the white liquid and that of the black liquid. And the resulting color of that mix-up will neither be black or white, and cannot serve the distinct purposes, and you will lose the color in its distinctiveness. The result may be confusion. Now it is based on this confusion that gender violence are increasing to alarming proportions, because nobody seems to be understanding himself or herself. This is not good enough for anyone, but there is no way out until the right steps are taken in the right direction. Now back to South Africa. This country has led me to understand and to question the legitimacy of having a government that ignores the moral voices of its people. The laws of South Africa and manners of its implementations goes contrary to the traditionally acceptable ways of the majority of the people, and thereby increases moral degeneration. So bad the situation has become that even foreign nationals who stepped their leg in that country are morally polluted. No women, whether from Mozambique, Nigeria, Congo, or other neighboring countries, has stepped into South Africa and maintained herself. More alarming is Zimbabwean women who flee the tight discipline of Mugabe's regime and came to South Africa, where they are free enough to engage in recklessness. As many people will attest, South Africa now is a source of moral pollution to the rest of the continent of Africa. And if the government of South Africa thinks that imprisonment is the correct way to stop violence on women, then there may be little hope of ending this social problem anytime soon. And please, nobody should hold Nelson Mandela directly responsible for the gender-based problems we have in South Africa, even though it is true that the words of such a great man can have huge effect in the mind and understanding of a nation to whom such person is a hero. We have to seriously question our morals, for no single person is responsible in directing the moral of the whole nation. Furthermore, in all my experiences with women, I find that as much as we may accuse them of some wrongs, men are to blame for many things. For women are the negative aspect of creation, and when we begin to allow ourselves to yield in all their demands, all things will go negative. Women, I believe, are given to men for care, guidance, and control. Unfortunately, men have gone astray in their responsibility. And as soon as men go astray, women will likewise go astray, and possibly worse. It has gone so bad in today's world that governments even use legislation to deprive men of their natural power to decide how their family should function. It has not been wise enough to come up with a means to help both men and women understand their position and handle it better. Some men, when suffocated by this situation, has gone as wrong as using violence to force matters, and thus suffer harassment and sometimes imprisonment. The worst thing is that the ancient African tradition that had endeavored to live accordingly has been ignored in favor of politics. Everywhere, at public speeches and political campaigns, you have to sing the praises of women in order to be politically correct, even when the women themselves should be cautioned. Now, we just can't say that women are wrong in any way. You are immediately guilty of evils, including the possibility of losing elections or losing your position in the society. Worst of all is that women have allowed themselves to be used in some smear campaign by politicians against one another. For when we say women freedom and empowerment, sometimes a type of freedom and empowerment that goes beyond the scope of their gender functionality by nature. What are the moral effects of this? For when we say women empowerment, it means that men were empowered over them. And if yes, men were empowered over women, when did it start? Apparently from the beginning of creation. And if that be the case, who empowered men above women and why? Why is it that modern man with his incoherent attitude has taken it upon himself to undermine the gender functionality inherent in humankind from creation? We need an answer to help us understand ourselves better and function well. The world seems to be suffering from a misguided civilization. For what does our scientific and technological progress profit mankind if the prime of creation, namely men and women, cannot function accordingly and be happy? We need to understand that men and women are not the same. They are different persons created to come together and produce a result. The type of result they produce is based purely on how they view and treat each other. If they view themselves well, the result will be well as well. But if not, the result will also reflect it. Men by nature command power, women command attraction. Men command aggression, women command higher intuition. Men command wisdom, women command emotions. Men serves as the foundation and pillar that sustains the house. Women serves as the polish that brings out the building. Oh, how beautiful it is to have women in this world. It will be in our best interest to handle the gender issue with care and discipline. Although no legal statute or government policy will ever make people completely happy, because the relationship among different genders is based purely on mutual acceptance among those involved. Even the so-called women empowerment and the rhetorics of gender equality has not succeeded anywhere in the world in keeping both men and women happy. With due respect to all the contributions women have made in accompanying men towards the journey of our evolution, men remain the torchbearer of life and labor, and mixing them up in undue manner will result in confusion. I believe that the position into which women are constantly driven is a violence against the order of creation, and that is why it has not managed to bring order and dignity, but rather we see an increase of violence. And please remember what I said earlier in this message, that there is no gender in the spiritual world. It is only in this material world that gender differences exist for reasons best known to the Creator. Therefore, it will be in our best interest to understand this and live accordingly. Therefore, caution yourself as a man not to use your power to treat women badly, because you may one day return back to earth as a woman to pay for your wrongs. This natural law also applies to women. However, this does not mean to put fear in you, but rather to let you know that you need wisdom in regard to your responsibilities as the prime of creation. It is based on this view that the above-mentioned World Society for Gender Discipline will engage in educating people to understand themselves and function, each person in his or her own conviction. The organizations are engaged in searching for answers for these questions. 1. What is the origin and purpose of the laws of bipolarity, which manifests itself in almost all creations and as gender differences on humans? 2. How was a gender empowered over the other in some areas of life, and why? 3. Which among the gender bears the prime identity in their creation, and why? 4. What are the moral and immoral effects of woman material empowerment in any society? For in this particular question, if men who serve as the tools of production in the hands of nature, and in whose name material wealth is mainly recognized, have not attained total fulfillment, why do we think that transferring wealth and means of production to women will produce fulfillment for them either? The question continues. 5. To what extent and which areas of life should women be empowered? 6. Why did the ancient democratic tradition deny women voting rights, and why should it be accorded now? 7. Is it time for man to overturn the ancient and accepted functions of gender differences, and why? In all the above mentioned questions, I have my personal suggestion. 1. Women must not be allowed autonomousness or anything that may lead them to it. 2. Women must not be given or allowed into heavier responsibilities that are not made for them. All her life must be attached to that of a man. This is how she is made to function by nature. If you don't like my suggestions, you may proceed in your own way, but one day. But you will agree with me that some aspect of human being must be constantly suppressed if we are to build a focused society. But if we are to let loose all aspects of human being in the name of freedom for self-fulfillment, then we must be ready for the unthinkable, because mankind is voluminous in both good and evil. Furthermore, the search for answers for these questions should not be made an academic pursuit. It must be sourced from the major ancient traditions of the world. People should be able to understand themselves within the scope of nature and endeavor to function accordingly. This concludes what I have to say regarding gender management. Now, on the 10th of August 2017, I had another wonderful dream that kept me on bed for longer than I usually wake up in the morning. On that day, I had woken up earlier at around 5:30 a.m., but I was induced to fall asleep again and thus began to dream. In that dream, I saw a black coffin brought from the United States of America by an unknown person. The coffin was covered with the national flag of Venezuela. I saw the person that brought it was wearing an overall cloth designed with the colors of the flag of the United States of America, but the face of the slim-statured mysterious messenger was blurred that I did not see his face, that I may recognize him. The mysterious messenger deposed the coffin at the entrance door of the Venezuelan National House for President Nicolas Maduro to see. The president came out to the coffin and summoned his political entourage, and many of them came out. At the left side of the president was a slender woman clothed in ladies' fashion, in red skirt and red top, with a red belt on her stomach made of the same silk material as the cloth she was wearing. And by the right side of the president is a man of balanced stature, clothed in black shirt and black trouser, while the president himself was clothed in red shirt and black trouser. Following were many other officials of the Venezuelan government, and Maduro opened slightly the coffin in the direction of its head and looked. He did not like what he saw therein, as he shook his head and frowned his face. Other officials also peeped into the coffin, and they did not like what they saw therein, especially the lady in red, who screamed with her right hand on her mouth, in the usual woman manner. But all the officers, including the president himself, were determined to deal with the content of the coffin. I myself did not see the content of the coffin, as I was placed to observe what was going over there. But as they were standing in front of the coffin, contemplating the next step to be taken in regard to the contents of the coffin, I saw Luis Suarez, the Uruguayan footballer, in the appearance of a 10-year-old boy clothed in the FC Barcelona soccer jersey. He ran towards the coffin and looked into it. He did not like what he saw in the coffin, as he screamed and frowned his face with his two hands placed on his waist in Kimbo style. And he ran back to his fellow South American footballers, whom were all playing soccer in the same field, to call them that they may come and see what is going on. The first to follow him was Carlos Tevez, the Argentine footballer clothed in the blue top and white shirt of Manchester City Football Club, also in the appearance of a 10-year-old boy. They both went to the coffin and saw it. Carlos Tevez was also not happy, as he held his two hands over his head in his usual manner of expressing unhappiness when he missed a scoring opportunity. The next footballer coming was Edinson Cavani in his current physical maturity with the black jersey of Paris Saint-Germain Football Club. And following Cavani was Angel Di Maria in his current stature of maturity with the Argentina national team with white shirt. Other footballers stopped training and followed suit. But before they could come to the coffin, the dream was cut off, and I woke up at 8:54 a.m., losing lots of energy due to the dream. I can only confirm that Luis Suarez and Carlos Tevez were the ones who saw the contents of the coffin while I was there. Whether others saw it or not, I did not know, as the dream was cut off. So tired was I that I stayed on the bed for another 30 minutes before I woke out of the bed. But as I was in the bed, I prayed in my mind that the symbolism of the dream shall serve as a wake-up call to all the native people of South America, that they may work together for the freedom of their continent. When I did wake up, I went to my bathroom. I took a cup, opened the tap and poured cold water into it. And I dipped my left finger into it, raised it slightly above my head and bring it to my forehead and make the sign of the cross on my forehead, as I was inspired to do so. I did not understand why I had to make that sign of the cross, but I did as I was inspired. I did not immediately wash my face as I usually do, so that I would allow the sign of the cross to dry on my skin. And I came back to my room to write the dream down. This concludes the account of the dream. May the Father of mankind help the oppressed people of South America in these trying times. The meaning of the above may explain the dream and its symbolism I did not understand. But on Saturday, the 12th of August, at around 11:43 a.m., while I was at my business, I received this message, which lasted till 18:43 p.m. before I could understand it. It took my whole attention for the whole day, thinking the meaning of that dream. This I shall explain now. President Nicolás Maduro, the President of the Republic of Venezuela, is choosing for great political task across the continent of South America. And this is what I was inspired to tell him to do. He must appeal to the people of Israel and go to Jerusalem for this simple but highly powerful ritual. The people of Israel must provide a baby girl on her 5th year, but not one day more than 5 years old. She should be dressed in rosy color kid's dress with flower designs in white, and a white socks reaching halfway her calf with a black shoe of flat sole. Her hair should be dressed in simple fashion, which I shall describe later when called upon. Then the people of Israel shall bring a table at a height reachable by the baby girl without her standing on any support to raise her height. The table should be covered with a white cloth down to the floor. Then the mother of the baby girl must decorate the table further in Jewish tradition. Upon the table shall be placed 2 candle holders made of plated gold with 2 white candles put in the candle holders and placed opposite to one another. At the middle of the two candles shall be placed a cross designed in simple fashion and made of gold-plated material. An incense burner, made also of gold-plated material, shall be on the table. The material from which these materials are made is not too important, but try and make it a presidential quality, possibly with pure gold. A shot glass of about 400 to 500 milliliter size for drinking water, to be provided also by the people of Israel, must also be on the table. 1 liter of olive oil must be placed on the table. A natural incense capable of clearing negative energy must be there as well. The father or any man related to the baby girl must go to the bush and nip any branch of any tree that is desirable as a gift. It must not be cut off with knife or any metal. Just nip it off with hands. But before nipping off the branch, a short blessings must be said, invoking the blessings of God on behalf of the oppressed people of the world. The branch of the tree shall be placed on the table along with the above-mentioned materials. A jug filled with plain water must be around, but not on the table. Then the little Jewish girl must pour the water into the glass on the table. The candle must be lit by the virgin girl prior to the ritual. The mother of the baby girl or any woman closer to her on daily basis must be there. The mother is chosen because women handle better the emotions of children. The President Maduro himself must go to Jerusalem with any virgin girl of the same age, accompanied by the mother of the girl from among the Venezuelan native people. The two little girls shall be dressed in similar fashion. The little girl from Israel with her mother and her entourage, comprising of a Jewish high priest, shall stand in the eastern side of the table, while President Maduro and his entourage stand in opposite direction. The natural incense must be burnt few minutes before the ritual to clear away negative energy. Now the simple ceremony may begin. The Jewish high priest must be clothed in white robe with white cordelier tied on his waist. He must kneel down and place his two palms flat on the table in a manner that they may form a triangle. And the glass filled with water shall be at the center of the triangle of his hands. Then the high priest, while concentrating and gazing at the water, must say a simple prayer invoking the blessings of God. A short prayer, such as, God of the heavens, God of the earth, may it please thee that this water be imbued with thy holy power to strengthen those who drink it with wisdom, strength, and courage, that they may work for their goodness and that of the world. Amen. Please note that this particular prayer said here is not a mandatory. The high priest can come up with his own prayer if he is not satisfied with this, but the prayer must be said to the hearing of all. After the prayer, the high priest must stay aside. He must not touch or drink the water. Then the little Israeli girl, with the help of her mother, shall dip her left index finger into the glass of water, raise it slightly above her head and bring it down to the forehead and make a sign of the cross. Then followed by President Nicolas Maduro in similar manner. Then the girl must drink the water in small quantity and hand it over to President Maduro. And Maduro must drink the water to the dregs. Then the little girl must take the branch of the tree and the olive oil and hand it over to Maduro as a gift. The two candles must be allowed to burn to the end. This concludes the ceremony of the day. You may take pictures and make video recordings of the ceremony, but do not release it to the public or the media. They must be placed in the archives of both Israel and Venezuela for future references. The pictures and recordings must not be made public until everyone involved in that ceremony has gone into transition. Then President Nicolas Maduro must return to Venezuela with the branch of the tree, the glass for water, the incense burner, the cross, the olive oil, and 2 candle holders. What shall follow after this, I shall myself communicate to the president in due time. The president must not make any gift to the people of Israel or to the girl or her family, nor make any promise of doing so in the future. When going to Israel, President Maduro must not make it spectacular, just a simple personal visit. And he must not meet with the political leaders of Israel, only the Israeli traditional leaders, deeply versed in Jewish tradition. Do not go there with money or any material treasure. Just talk to the people of Israel and they will take charge of your security, your feeding and accommodation. The people of Israel will do everything for you with the beauty of their hearts. Please do not go for entertainment of any sort, and do not at that moment discuss politics or economy with anyone whilst on that journey. Just face the ceremony as the sole purpose of your visit. On your return to Venezuela, please pay constant attention to the influx of divine energy and information that may be coming to you, either by dreams or by abstract means, or through political happenings around you. Few months later, you will see the oppressed people of South America coming to you, and you will sit down with them to discuss the possibilities of emancipating that continent. Now, in regard to the black coffin that was brought from the United States of America, be mindful that the kick of a dying horse is always strong, but leading to its final death. In this regard, do not fear the threats and harassment of war and sanctions from America, for the United States is dead and will never, never again be resurrected. Always remain confident, strong and courageous in regard to what lies ahead. Whatever it may demand to emancipate the people of South America must be engaged with, but ultimately that continent must be free, free and free from oppression, forever. Afterwards, we shall return to Israel to discuss political and diplomatic relations with them, and them in their convenience shall come to you. Do not be emotional with Israel or try to see them as gods to be worshipped. They are not gods and have never and will never claim to be so. In the diplomatic agreements, you shall bring your proposal, and they will accept or reject some of it. And they in turn shall bring their own proposal, and you shall accept or reject some of it. And both of you will reach an amicable end. And you shall, as soon as Africa is established, come to Africa for the same purpose, and we in Africa shall receive you with open arms. Furthermore, I advise that whatever diplomatic agreement you may go with Israel should be signed and be subject to amendments. It must be opened for continuity for as long as both parties are happy, because we don't really know with certainty how the world shall turn to be anytime from now, until the cloud hanging over this generation of mankind is over. But surely your relationship with Israel shall bear good fruit from now on. Furthermore, I advise President Nicolas Maduro not to hold much grudge against any of his political opponents in Venezuela or elsewhere, but rather be firm, strong and simple in this new beginning, and be careful and thoughtful in all your engagements. We shall make some mistake which will be corrected when it is due. Now, concerning what may be coming to you in a strange manner, do not rush to understand them immediately. They can be confusing, and they may take time to saturate you. Do not tell people of the strange feelings you are having inside of you. Always have a diary and pen near your bed to write them down, because you will be understanding them differently, but coherently at different stages. I am telling you this out of experience, because I had a revelation almost 18 years ago about Southern Africa, which I wrote somewhere in just 3 phrases. I had totally forgotten them until I suddenly began to look into my records in early August of this year to remember them. In it, I find that the coming of Jacob Zuma to power in South Africa, including most of the political and economic situations in Zimbabwe, added to what will soon be happening in Namibia were written down. I was shocked about it. So always take record, but don't do that in the public, and do not allow anyone to see it whilst you are still alive. They are your personal sanctuary, and not even your wife must have access to it. Some of them take time to manifest, and may even take place when you are already dead. So follow your inspirations as much as possible, and leave the rest for future generations. And do not make the mistake of thinking that the everlasting destiny of South America has been placed totally in your hands. For you are only an agent of the Divine Masters for as long as you are permitted. Afterward, you shall die and join them above. The position you shall occupy above depends on the amount of good work and dedication you give to the present task lying before you. This concludes the end of this message on Nicolas Maduro, the President of Venezuela. Furthermore, in South America, there shall come up a big heart from Brazil, and the head of Bolivia shall grow bigger and stronger. Chile shall no longer be happy, and Mexico shall withdraw. Then shall Colombia be darkened in order to shine brighter, all arrows pointing to the north. Now, going to the continent of Asia, the world shall soon be surprised about what revolt shall come up from Japan regarding the economic and political situations of that country, which are hidden away from the world. The issue that will come up from Japan will soon arouse the people of South Korea to speak out their hidden grievances. China will not escape internal revolt, and Russia shall burst from within. And there shall come up a contradictory voices from Indonesia and Malaysia, but which later shall speak in unison regarding the evils of America. This includes uprising in Vietnam. This shall also mark the beginning of social, economic, and political revolution across the Asian continent. Saudi Arabia and Kuwait shall pay attention and shall take a different step away from the East. For there shall come up a revolution not that of human hands, but a spiritual revolution from God. Now, on the 28th of July, I had a dream that I only have the courage to include in this message on the 15th of August, due to the fear it has in me. I had never wanted to include this dream here, but then I told myself that I am not on a personal mission, nor did I ask to be revealed anything of such type through dreams. Therefore, I have no reason to decide what should be included here or not. I have to include it just like others. In that dream, I saw President Muhammadu Buhari of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, dressed in his usual white gown, where he pulled off a gun, pointing it at the head of President Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe, threatening to shoot him. Buhari shouted to Mugabe, "You supported Yar'Adua in power, now where are my documents?" I saw Mugabe dressed in black suit, addressing a gathering of people in a meeting, like in the African Union or the United Nations. Mugabe raised his left hand to the direction of the gun, apparently to shield himself from the bullet. Then Buhari withdrew the gun and sat down on a swivel chair, where he sat down like a receptionist in a big office. Then the dream was cut off. I have been waiting to see if the divine world will give me any details regarding the dream, so that the explanations will have substance, but nothing was coming forth. Whether Mugabe is in any way involved against Buhari in Nigerian politics in favor of the late Yar'Adua, or even his successor, Goodluck Jonathan, I cannot tell. But I was so shocked about the intensity of Buhari's threat, even though he did not shoot the gun. This concludes the account of that terrifying dream. Now, regarding the visions and dream, which I said earlier that I had while in Ouagadougou, along the road to Kambonsa military camp, which I said that I will not explain here until I see those who are capable of understanding them. I did not want to explain it in this message, because what I thought was the meaning is different from what I am now been made to understand on 15th of August 2017 at around 15:52 p.m. Now I will explain the vision, and afterwards I will explain the meaning as I am now made to understand, because I am having more confidence due to the revelations I am now having in these days. As I lay down on a wooden bench with a golden stool to support my head, I suddenly and involuntarily went into trance, slightly closing my eyes. And a vision appeared to me, which I was made to see someone standing suspended on the air, very far away in the upper heavens, with his legs separated from each other. He was a man with white woolen hair, down to the beard. He wore a white robe, which appeared like standard color due to the power of the sunlight that surrounded it from the upper heavens. The robe was reaching down to the feet. It was guarded on the west with a cordelier of similar color. Sun rays from upper heavens was surrounding on him like the brightness of a torchlight. And I kept on looking and see men gathered with sackcloth in their hips, ascending from the earth, and going each one into the middle of the legs of the one standing suspended. And whosoever goes there does not fall out again. And that vision disappeared from my sight. And the Spirit told me that he was Jesus Christ, with his power of resurrecting the dead to live again. After a few days, a similar occurrence happened in the same place. In this vision, I saw in the heavens a man with woolen white hair down to the beard, and clothed in white, seated on a golden throne. Upon his head was a crown, and surrounding him were many men whose faces were blurred, and he disappeared from my sight. And the Spirit told me that it is the throne of the heavenly King, fortified. Now, regarding the vision of resurrection, I did not understand its real meaning because I never believed that there is a special day when a judgment will be made for resurrection, as preached in many churches. I will never believe such thing because my assumption was that if a man will be resurrected with his human body back to heaven, in which appearances will he be? If a man dies at the age of 80 years, will he be resurrected with an 80-year-old body, while the same man was once 10, 20, 30, or even 50 years old? Furthermore, if a man died as a 120 years old, will he be resurrected to live in heaven with the physically weary body of an old person? Will such person have the vigor to undertake the activities of life? So I never believed in the resurrection of the physical body. But this argument goes beyond the scope of this message. Now that I am revealed the meaning of that vision, let me tell you the meaning as I am now made to understand in the context related to other visions I am having. The meaning is that Jesus Christ will bring the oppressed, the downtrodden and despised people of the world into livelihood, that they may enjoy the beauty of life without human oppression. I can only explain it in this language of my capacity. And I hope many people will understand this better in their own way. The rest of this regarding the meaning of resurrection is left for philosophers and theologians. Furthermore, in the same saloon in Ouagadougou, at the beginning of the month of September 1997, my eyes was once opened that I saw in the heavens a garden growing fresh green grasses and flowers and trees bearing good fruits, and it disappeared from my sight. The meaning of this is the new world of peace, justice and harmony and abundance that will grow like a garden for the good of humanity. Again, in the month of October 1997, at Cartier Widi, I went to sleep at around 8 p.m. Then I began to dream in that night. I saw a pot made of clay. Half of it was buried in the ground, and half was visible upwards the earth. I saw smoke coming out of the pot like a vapor of a pot boiling water, and it disappeared from my sight. When I woke up, a spirit made me understand that the smoke is the fuming anger of those people killed while fighting for justice, who are now calling God to exercise justice on behalf of the oppressed people of the world. This also I am made to understand is the core of the events that will be taking place in the world from now on. This concludes the revelation that I am giving on the 15th of August 2017 regarding the dreams and visions I had in Ouagadougou. Now the economic and political restructuring of Africa was very much included in the message I received from the great men above. The organization to be called the Federation of African Small-Scale Industrialists and Traders Union, which shall be formed across Africa, was an idea inspired from above. It is a means towards industrializing Africa from the grassroots level and with the combined efforts of the people. Irrespective of what people may be thinking about Africa's industrialization, the basic strategies are with me, including that of political reformation of the continent. To elaborate a bit on the economic reform of Africa, the divine world is worried about the slow pace of souls making great efforts towards returning to God. This is due to the stress that our capitalist system has inflicted on mankind, which has made many people to put more energy in material survival with little or no consideration on spirituality. For example, if in the educational system of a nation there are 1 million children who enrolled in primary 1 education, and the government is expecting that after 10 or more years there should be at least 400,000 students who will qualify into university level, only to find that less than 50,000 students makes it to university. A good government will begin to be worried why the people are not growing into university, and that government will try to help in finding a solution to the cause. Making it short, our economic system has made it difficult for many people to have basic means of material survival, and this has forced many people away from going back to God in the expected number. Therefore, our capitalist system needs to be controlled better. However, on this issue, let me stop here. Going further, all people of Africa at home and abroad shall engage in the political and economic restructuring of Africa, and it will have a major impact in the rest of the world. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen of African root, the time has come for change. Please know that this is not a one-man responsibility. It is a collective responsibility for all of us. And do not forget that the steps we are about to take will not be as easy as licking an orange. It's a very tough moment for us, a period that will gradually culminate in Africa being restored back to its rightful position in world affairs. During the first meeting of the Federation of African Small-Scale Industrialists and Traders Union to be held in Johannesburg, South Africa, with dates to be determined later, the following questions will need to be answered. 1. What is a nation and what is national economy? 2. Do African nations over the years have the national economy capable of taking proper care of its people? If yes, why were they not doing so? And if no, what is the solution? It will be a brainstorming moment that will define the next economic and industrial direction of the continent. All my journeys across African countries, I have realized that it was made for me to go around and familiarize myself with the situation of the continent. And on the 16th of July 2017, going into the 17th, I was on my bed contemplating on how to bond Africa to put their efforts together to industrialize the continent. I lay down on the bed and fell asleep, and this revelation was handed to me in that dream, and it was called in the dream the 5 Principles for Africa, that which I personally called the Oath and Declaration of the Commonwealth of African Nations. I woke up around 4 a.m. on the 17th and wrote them down. I gave it this name because it has to be agreed and signed by all African nations. The 5 principles are as follows. 1. That Africa must declare a belief in a supreme creator of the universe. 2. That Africa must accept that man differ in their levels of evolution and intelligence, and as such, the wealth of Africa shall be entrusted into the hands of those capable of developing them. 3. That the wealth of Africa shall be equitably distributed for the good and benefit of all its entire population. 4. That Africa shall use its wealth to extend a helping hand when possible and agreed upon for the good of the world and its human race. 5. That the world and its material resources are made for further development and proper utilization for the benefit of mankind. These were not what I was expecting, but these are what I was given in that dream. How the economic idea of the new Africa is planned to take effect, I shall withhold for now until the Federation of African Small-Scale Industrialists and Traders Union officially kicks off. While the Federation of African Small-Scale Industrialists and Traders Union shall be the economic and industrial arm of the new Africa, we shall also establish an organization to be called the People's Movement for African Unity as the political and social transformative arm. The People's Movement for African Unity was an organization I mistakenly rushed to launch in 2010-11, but it did not work and I abandoned it. For while it had the basic principle of African political federation, it lacked the means to implement them because it was not revealed then. It only has the political ideas without economic idea. Now that the economic and industrial idea has been included to make it complete, I now realize that a nation with political idea or political power but without viable economy is not complete. The People's Movement for African Unity shall be responsible for, among other things, the transformative of African people through education, the political transformative idea of Africa through the People's Movement. I shall withhold for now until the organization officially kicks off. The mass education of Africans shall be organized to include the general history of the black race, from as ancient and as traceable to the modern day, including such issues as 1. The real cause of immigration of the people from ancient Egypt, the Middle East and Asia, and their subsequent settlement down the sub-Saharan Africa. 2. The involvement of the black people in ancient and modern civilizations across the world. This shall include the areas of philosophy, mysticism, religion and science. 3. The role of foreign religions in subsequent demise of African cultures. The struggle for independence of African states and the ensuing neocolonialism, and how was many international institutions used against the interests of African nations, and what were the attempts by many African leaders to stop such, and the manner in which they were brutally murdered or removed from power. And finally, the great issue of African unity and its benefit to Africa and the entire world, just to make few points. This education must be truthful and objective. The primary aim of this education is to awaken Africans regarding their painful history, and to elevate their minds from thinking ethnically and nationally to thinking continentally in relation to their common history and culture, and to introduce in their mind the need to work in solidarity regarding their collective future. Next part of the education shall be the education of self-transformation through discipline and nobility of thoughts, words, and actions. What modern Africa has inherited from colonization is the mentality of trying to correct people's wrong through police brutality, imprisonment, and heavy fines. But the education we shall engage in is the type that will focus on transforming our people in diverse ways. People need to understand the positives that discipline can infuse in their life. As soon as they understand it and make discipline their culture, they will change for better. Religious differences cannot be undermined. For if a people is captured into submission by foreign cultures, at a time in history when there was no information, Should that mean that as our forefathers were captured, we in this time and generation shall continue in the same captivity? What then shall we benefit as a people in this age of information? Although we continue to be religious and to study religions, all religions will gradually die because the truth about God has not been made available to the public through religion. Furthermore, no religion will claim to be the only legitimate source linking man to God. For all will know God, and God will be implanted in the consciousness of every man. Then shall everyone erect his own altar of worship as a place of communion between himself and God. But for now, we shall study African traditional religions and philosophies, and make comparisons with other religions and philosophies of the world. In this regard, we shall appeal to both the Jews and the Arabs with their Abrahamic religions to prepare and give us a simplified and concise explanations of the origin, purpose, and the spiritual, social, moral, and scientific benefit they offer to mankind. From there, we shall compare them with our ancient African cultures and traditions and see if they are in any way better than what we had in Africa prior to the invasion of the continent. From there, we choose our own way of seeing God and the way we have to live in peace and harmony with the rest of the human race, because Africans cannot afford again to remain backward among the community of mankind. Now I plead to everyone, men and women of knowledge, to prepare themselves for the great task ahead. Philosophers, sociologists, historians, cartographers, anthropologists, political leaders, lawmakers, educators, doctors and medical practitioners, businessmen and industrialists, linguists, mystics, farmers and nutritionists, and all people of knowledge in the art of living and production should begin to prepare themselves for the new Africa and indeed the new world. The philosophers, the mystics, the historians, the anthropologists, the cartographers, the sociologists, the psychologists, the political scientists, legal professionals, and traditional leaders of all ancient kingdoms of Africa, and all areas of related knowledge shall work with the People's Movement for African Unity, while the scientists, the economists, doctors and medical scientists, bankers and financial institutions, the industrialists, business strategists, engineers, architects, civil engineers, trade and labor unions, and other related areas shall work with the Federation of Africa's Muscle Industrialists and Traders Union to move Africa forward. Please start readying yourself for the great task ahead. Now, regarding the political and economic advancement of Africa and the theories that follow them, the basic ideas are with me, but we will still need to sit down as a people. In this regard, let me stop here for now. Moving further, and wonder shall never end. On the 17th of August, 2017, the weather was very cold when I laid on my bed to sleep. Then I had two wonderful but fearful dreams in quick succession, the account of which I shall give as follows. In the first dream, I saw a mysterious crawling creature, such as I had never seen on earth before. The creature had a flat head like a fish, which we call opo in Igbo language. I don't know the English name to it. The body looked like that of a human being, with two legs separated apart. Its body was covered with dried brown leaves and looked soaked in water. It was crawling on the ground and had its four legs like that of a crocodile, but it did not have the full shape of a crocodile. And I kept on watching the creature bring its two legs together and gradually turned into something like a cockroach, with wings also covered with dried and soaked leaves. I kept on looking, and see the creature began to crawl backwards from a very beautiful house that looked like a state president office, but which also looked like a mall. As I saw through the glass door of the house a white lady wearing a blue jeans that reached her calf, and a pink polo shirt with a paper bag made in a pinkish color. The bag was placed on her right shoulder and looked like someone coming from shopping. The lady was with her daughter, throwing her at the right hand. The creature was crawling backwards from the house in plain afternoon, according to the appearance of the dream, and it disappeared from my sight. And then I woke up and began to ponder about the meaning of the dream. And immediately a spirit told me that the creature represents China, withdrawing itself from fulfilling the diplomatic and trade agreement it had made with African countries, and that this will happen in a moment when China will have a serious domestic troubles, thus leaving Africa stranded and confused. This situation will arouse serious political, economic and social troubles across Africa, to such an extent that Africa will be exposed again to the severest exploitation of its human and natural resources, in which China itself and other world powers will be deeply involved. And that at the height of that confusion, many African leaders will begin to fight among themselves regarding the nations that convinced one another to get involved in businesses with China. That this would have plunged Africa deep into economic and political uncertainties, were it not for the new Africa that is coming to stay. And I looked at my cell phone, and the time was 22:38 p.m. This concludes the account of the first dream, the dream of a crawling creature. Few minutes later, I was lulled again into sleep, in which the second dream immediately started. In that dream, I saw myself wearing a faded blue jeans trouser with black shoe and black suit. I was the owner of a provision store built with zinc, exactly the same way my elder brother Joseph built in my village in front of our compound in 1980, but slightly different in a modern way, because it was wire mesh protector. It has wire mesh protector. I sat down outside with a lamp whose light globe was slightly darkened by the smoke of the lamp. I sat outside with a chair to receive fresh air while waiting for customers. At a time, I felt to urinate, and then I stood up and took the lamp in my hand, so I can see clearly where I am going in that night time of the dream. I walked about 10 to 15 meters away and climbed a small hill so I can urinate over there. The main road that passes vehicle was continuing down, and the pedestrian road that has grasses at its corners like many African villages. As I climbed the hill, I saw a white car facing the road in which I was. The car stopped at the direction of where I am, blew its horn, and I was surprised that the car wanted to do, because the road is not for cars. The driver of the car changed the gear to number 1 and drove fast upon the hill, but it did not hit me, and it disappeared from my sight. And I immediately saw a beast from the other side of the road coming towards my direction. The appearance of the beast was wonderful. It looked like a goat on the body, but it was not a goat. It had the body of a pig with the head of a bull, but did not have the horn of a bull. The horns were short. It had white hair all throughout the body, except a black dot near the right leg. The beast was so strong, fierce and agile, and the body was so strong as if it was all made of steel. The beast was coming towards me to fight me. I hit my leg on the ground to intimidate the beast to run away, but it stood firm. I did the same thing again for the second time, but the beast stood firm and seriously staring at me. I had no other weapon to fight the beast. As it was approaching me, I flicked the lamp at its direction, and it withdrew back a bit, but it still wanted to fight me. I began to sense that the war with the beast may take long, so I jumped down the hill and ran to lock my businesses properly so that no passerby will steal my goods. After locking my shop, I came out determined to fight the beast. Although I had the courage to fight, but I was also scared of the strength and the fierceness of the beast. I had no other weapon at my disposal, nor did I seek to have any other weapon. I was only with the lamp at my right hand. I was also aware that the strength of the material with which the lamp was made of was not strong enough to inflict injuries on the beast should it have the courage to war with me, because if it came for war, the lamp would be shattered should I hit it on the beast. But I was standing firm, having nothing but the lamp at hand. And the beast kept on staring at me, and got discouraged and began to walk backwards, one step after another. And it ran away back to the direction from which it came, and it disappeared from my sight. And I breathed in and released my breath in relief. And then I woke up. And the Spirit told me that the beast is the power which do not like the light I am carrying for Africa, because the light will extinguish its own power. That as soon as Africa embraces the light and the light began to shine brighter, the beast will gradually lose its power and die. The Spirit said that the beast was not after me as a person, but after the light. That its aim was to destroy the light I was carrying so that Africa will continue in darkness. But because of the innocence of the one carrying the light, the beast did not have the courage to attack the light and walked back into oblivion. That I must go with courage to present the light for Africa, and that the light will continue to brighten Africa forever. And I woke up and looked at my cell phone and see the time was 23:34 p.m. This concludes the account of the dreams of Lamb and the evil beast. Let those with ear hear, and let those with mind understand.